What's up, soldiers? Thanks for joining me on today's video. Is Mitch Hooper cheating? A strongest man on earth analysis. So this past weekend, we had the strongest man on earth competition, formerly called the Shaw Classic. It's at the Shaw Classic event. It was a really awesome event. I really liked watching it because of the high level spectacle of this show. There's a lot of cool, big, fun to watch events, a lot of heavy stuff, and an amazing lineup. You also have to give Brian Shaw a lot of credit because him and his team, they pay for the athletes' travel, expenses, food, and give out a pretty large sum of prize money at this show. So they're really doing their best to put on quite an amazing show, and very quickly, within a couple years, this is already recognized as one of the biggest and best strongman competitions on the planet. So let's get into some of our results right out the gate. We had Mitch Hooper, good, strong first place finish. Hafthor Bjornsson won 5 events, but still came in second place, followed by Lucas Hatton. Tremendous job. I saw him win America's Strongest Man here in Orlando last year. Great job. Lucas Hatton crushed a lot of those lifts. Trey Mitchell coming back from tearing his Achilles at the Rogue Invitational. Great job finishing in 4th. Austin Andrade in 5th. Evan Singleton 6th. Tom Stoltman in 7th. Bobby Thompson in 8th, Wester Winsky in 9th, and Tom Evans in 10th. So really an amazing lineup here. And, there's 16 total. So, that's even leaving off a couple names like Alexei Novikov, Pavlo Kordiaka, Ivor Smarkstelis, and some others. So what a cool lineup. It was just an awesome event. So unfortunately, this show had a little bit of controversy surrounding it. And sometimes, that happens. I do really think we ought to give a hand to Shaw and his team for really doing what they can to put on a super spectacle show. This is something that, is reminiscent of some of like the Mohegan Sun Grand Prix and some of these Strongman World Tours where they were doing in-arena shows. I mean, they pretty much sold out an arena in Colorado for this. It was a really loud, crazy crowd. The events were big scale, very exciting, but there were some errors. So let's kind of jump into those. We're going to actually jump into the deadlift first because that was the first event. There were a couple questionable lockout calls. Most importantly, I think the one is Evan Singleton was standing up all the way with his last and final deadlift, and it was ruled a no lift. According to the judges, his thumb came off the bar, so he was gripping a little bit in his fingertips. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to disagree with that call. I of course, was Mark Philippi and Ed Cohn were judging. They're professionals, but the standard had been set from the very beginning that this was going to be strict. Rules are rules, but I feel bad for Evan Singleton. I think he should have gotten that lift because he did stand up all the way, hips through, chest up, shoulders back, quads tight, glutes tight. Just didn't go his way because of the thumbs. Now, that's different. There was some controversy surrounding Lucas Hatton's call, but you can go back and watch that. Lucas Hatton did not stand up all the way. He could get a little bit of extension here, but his quads were soft and his shoulders were still rounded forward a little bit. So some people were complaining about that, but I do think that one was the correct call. And I have to give a shout out to Lucas Hatton because he took a huge jump going in for that third lift, trying to win some points. Did not work out, but he still finished in 3rd. Great job. So, out the gate, Hafthor won cleanly on that deadlift. Mitch Hooper got 2nd on that deadlift. It's a 960 something going in for that, which is just absurd. One of the heaviest raw deadlifts in history. Amazing stuff. So after that, we had an axle misload. So they had a event that was an overhead medley where in ascending weight, it was a log, axle, log, axle, log. I believe starting at 360 and ended up at like 440 for that. Now the second axle, originally when they put out, was the heavier axle. So if my memory serves me correctly, it was a 360 log, supposed to be a 375 axle, onto a 390 log, onto a 405 axle. So they actually put that 405 axle first, which threw off a lot of the competitors. That's a weight that some people are not going to be able to do, period. So when they're going up, it was maybe the first 4 people were missing and having a tough time with that. Now, it is worth noting that misloads happen at all levels. It's very unfortunate for the athletes that this happens, but it's a human element in this. And I think Brian Shaw made the right move. They had a talk with the athletes, and they allowed those competitors that went before and had the misloaded axle, they allowed them to backfill at the end if they so chose. Now, some of these people like Alexei Novikov came in only a few people later, probably because he wanted to stay warm. But this is unfortunately just kind of how it goes sometimes, and you got to roll and do the best that you can. This has happened at local shows, at pro shows like this one, and for world record attempts. Very famously in 2020, Julius Maddox was misloaded on an 800-pound bench press world record attempt. It's a tragedy. It's a shame that happened, but it does happen. So sometimes a lot of people in the strongman community, get all butthurt and they get into some sort of vendetta because they were misloaded and they take it personally. I promise you, this is not personal. And if you feel that way, you need to get over yourself because it's a human element and a human error. So let's have a lesson on this. If you as an athlete are going up to a weight to lift, you really should have a maybe quick check verification that it is the correct weight. It is the job and responsibility of the staff, the promoter, the loaders. There should be some sort of weight chart that's set out for that, but you got to do what you can as well to make sure that you're getting that, especially when you're doing things like a normal standard barbell and what like the plate math is. So, you're like, all right, 3 plates is 315. Oh, there's only 110 on that side. Like, takes 2 seconds to double check that. So just kind of, play around with that, pay attention, and do what you can when that happens. Okay. So what else happened here? We had slippery stones. So this was famously, they put in a 600 stone. There's a big stone series for Trump weights, 450, 500, 550, 600. So 600 is the heaviest Atlas stone that's ever been put into any competition. And a lot of these guys right out the gate were coming and saying like, I'm going right for that 600. Now, what ended up happening is some of the earlier guys were coming out pretty quickly, going for the 550 or maybe the 500, and there were a lot of zeros right out the gate. So some people were saying that these stones were very, very slippery. There's some sort of polish on the stones that was making it unliftable. The tacky was malfunctioning, this and that. And, I think that is a nonsense excuse. First off, you have to consider before all this happened, they had a max deadlift event. They had a very heavy overhead medley. They had a keg throw for height events. So the people's backs and bodies had already been through a lot. So considering fatigue, it's the last event, on a big heavy day, that is a big factor where normally some of these guys could hit some of those heavier reps easily when they're more fresh, but they weren't. Now, I also don't think that these things are an excuse when more than half of the field got reps. So what you ended up seeing as a very good strategy is a lot of these people would come out, they would hit one at the lightest one at the 450 to guarantee that they got points on the board, while some of their tacky was still fresh. Smart guys would just layer up with tacky so they could, grip on and go right to the next one. And then even some people too would come out and put some on the stones before they started their run. So really, again, if more than half of the field was able to successfully get reps, saying that these things were too slippery is not an excuse. These are things that happen in competitions when the equipment is not, it's not standardized. This is strongman. So you're not going to have, certain power bar with these standard kilo plates every time. You have to play with what is at hand. So I think a lot of these guys, it's really on them if they went to choose a heavier stone and they missed it. They should have strategized to maybe get some points on the board and then immediately go over for something heavier. And that's what the winners of this event did. That's what scored them points. So even somebody like Tom Stoltman, who's one of the best stone lifters in history, got a 0 on this event that probably cost him a podium spot, at the end of the day. So just want to kind of touch on that one because equipment is different at every strongman show. It is up to you, at the athlete, to adapt, have a good strategy and a game plan, and play it smart, especially when you need to consider the fatigue that has gone into that day. That was also relatively late at night. So for some people, that's a factor as well. It might have been about 9 p.m. here, Eastern time. Travel does make a difference, so just play smart. All right, squat depth. Now, this is one that I do want to cover because it very, very straightforward in a factual way. Some people had to squat much lower than others. Now, I don't know exactly how they set this up, how they measured the heights for this event, but it's a moderately standardized piece of equipment. They were all using the same piece of equipment to do these squat for reps. So however it came down, I think this is something, again, where strategy comes into play. You need to figure out what the rule set of the event is and then apply a winning strategy. So Mitch Hooper did dominate this event on numbers. He had, I believe, 10 reps. Second closest, I think, was Bobby Thompson, who got 5 or 6. A couple other people, Austin Andrade, did pretty well, but a lot of zeros once again. And some people are viciously attacking Mitch Hooper on this because, he definitely did not squat as low as a lot of the other athletes. Factual, all right? So I don't think that's his fault, I want to come back to that in just a second, but let's remember that. Factually, I'll have this picture on the screen for you. He did not squat as low as these other people. Remember that. All right, circus dumbbell call. There's really only one that was controversial in my opinion. Hafthor Bjornsson did not get a down call on one of the circus dumbbells, and the reasoning was that he did not wait for the down call. So this is an unfortunate thing. Terry Hollins is a very strict judge. I've seen it at OSG. We saw it again at Strongest Man on Earth. So he actually goes to raise his hand to give a down call, but he did not go a full down. So as soon as he starts to raise his hand, Hafthor drops it down. But according to the rules, Hafthor did not wait for the actual down call. He went as soon as the hand was going up. That is the rules. I do still think that Hafthor got robbed on that one, but I think that strict judging is a good thing as long as it is evenly applied. The problem is that Terry Hollins is one person and he was not judging everybody, especially the circus dumbbell. That was a head-to-head event, right? So you might have a little bit of discrepancy between the strictness of judges in events. That's just how it goes, and you need to know what you need to do if that happens. So if you got a really strict judge, too bad, deal with it, make sure your reps are good. But what do you do if you don't have as strict of a judge? So that's why I want to talk into this next point. Is Mitch Hooper cheating? This guy is on a roll. I mean, he has won the Arnold. He dominated the last Arnold. He won the Arnold UK. He's won the Strongest Man on Earth now. He won the Rogue Invitational. He's won the World's Strongest Man. He's hit everything that you could possibly think of right now. He's on one of the best runs, most amazing runs the sport has ever seen. Not without controversy, but let's break it down and let's get into why is that. So Mitch Hooper, he is known to have a history of questionable calls. All right, most famously, his circus dumbbell that ended up securing him the World's Strongest Man competition in 2 years ago, I believe. People that would be more strict on judging would have never given him that call. He was leaning away out like this, and most people do think that a correct technical lockout is standing tall, upright, facing forward, not here, okay? Now, let's also bring up this Rogue Invitational. He did win the log press event at the Rogue Invitational last year in Austin, Texas, and a lot of these reps, again, according to technical purists, a log lockout should be head through, standing erect, and locked out here, not with an arch or lean back like this. So, you could be looking at your judge, but still many people say, nope, that's not a lockout. That's not it. So why did he get these calls? This comes down to, honestly, the judges, okay? This is not Mitch Hooper's fault. Mitch Hooper, from the very start, was known as a cerebral athlete. He does a lot of little things to be very calculated and stuff. So as a competitor, you should be too. Let's say you know that your judge coming up is going to be a little lenient. Let's say you knew you could get away with doing 10% less on a rep out event and get good down calls. I think it is stupid to pretend like you wouldn't take advantage of that. Some people say oh, integrity, this and that, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, your job as an athlete is to get as many points as you can, to get as many reps as possible on the board, and to win the event or just do as best as you can. So I don't think that these calls are Mitch Hooper's fault. We do have one judge over and over and over and over again at the World's Strongest Man who, wow, gets calls wrong all the time. You know, it doesn't take a whole lot to figure out who that might be. Doesn't matter. But if you know that that's your judge and you're going to get some soft lockouts, freaking take advantage of it, man. So this is not on Mitch Hooper whatsoever. I do think that, you know, places like this need to elevate their standard of judging to make it a little more strict. And now that is kind of going into our next point. When the judging has been a little stricter, Mitch Hooper does always perform to the standard. Okay, so again, at this weekend, we just talked about how strict some of the judging was at the Shaw Classic. His lockouts were good. He did these reps correctly. So it's not something where he's incapable of doing it. He is getting every possible competitive advantage that he can with the rule sets. Okay? Once again, you as an athlete should do the same thing. You should really study the rules, watch your competitors going before you, see what they are getting away with, and take every little small thing that you can in order to perform well, right? So look no further than his Axel world record, completely clean, arguably cleaner than the previous world record holder, Iron Bibbies. He nailed it, all right? He got his head through, his arms were straight, he was standing up tall with it, could have held that thing all day. So this is why I think, you know, these questionable calls, it's not Mitch Hooper's fault because the judging was lax, right? You can't fault him for that. It's not the athlete's fault, okay? He's also, regardless of this stuff, this guy is the king of consistency. He doesn't have any bad events. This weekend alone at the Shaw Classic, he got a second. So that was deadlift second, overhead first, keg throw third. This was, I'm forgetting these, but it doesn't matter. Second, first, third, first, second, third, fourth. So he got no lower than fourth. And at the end, he won this thing cleanly. He probably could have gotten 10th and still won, but he still showed up and got fourth, played all the way through. So that's really what it takes to be a great strongman, is to be consistent across all these events. Hafthor even won 5 events outright and finished in second by kind of a big gap. So, you know, that's that. So lockout calls or whatever, you have to be consistent, be good across the board. And when it's time to show up, Mitch Hooper does that, okay? So I don't think that he's cheating. The guy's a phenomenal athlete. He's incredible. I would also like to shout out, I won 3 events at US Strongman Nationals and still came in fourth. That's just how it goes, okay? Lessons. So what can you take away from this? You need to take every advantage that you can as a competitor. On some of these things where, like, for example, you have a rep out competition or a rep out event and you're going to be able to get a lot, it would be really smart of you to look at your judge in the eye, make sure the first handful are really good and clean, and kind of send some subconscious signals to your judge that lets them know, like, oh, this person can go all day with this. So that's going to kind of give you a little bit of a mental game here to get some easier reps. You know, if your judge knows that you're going to fly right up, right out the handle and get it right into a lockout on like a deadlift or something, they'll give you a quick down call. If you keep following the rules, they'll probably remain pretty quick. If you grind out those first few and aren't looking at your judge, they're going to be hesitant to give you a quick down call. So when it is time, look your judge in the eyes, you know, and do that, play those little mind games so you can get those reps. So like on the Mitch Hooper log at Rogue, you know, he was holding back here, you know, not really in full complete extension, but he would still punch his head through and look at his head judge. And for whatever reason at that competition, that was good enough. So when you have that opportunity, you just have to take it. No excuses if you want to win and do well, okay? Be a pro. Be good at everything, man. You just have to, like, walk the walk as an athlete. You have to always be ready. You have to perform well. You have to just do all the things. And that's little things like making sure all your equipment is in order, making sure that you're preparing right, making sure that you're eating right. So you can't take advantage of all this little stuff if, you know, you're not already pretty good. So you get bonuses here by being strong, being fit, being conditioned, being prepared, being tactical. You're not going to be able to like kind of get away with some of these calls if you're weak, have poor technique, and struggle with this. So if you are already somebody that exists at a high level, you kind of set a standard for yourself and for other people that knows you're capable, so you might get away with more things. All right. Be nice too. That's also kind of part of being a pro. Do like lift heavy, be kind. I do like that. This is just another kind of mental mind game things. If you're an asshole, your judge is going to be human instinct, human element in these strongman contests. They're going to be less likely to give you reps. Like, judges try to be as impartial as possible because there are a lot of subconscious elements going on and this and that. Now, if you're a cool person, really nice, really friendly, again, subconsciously, that judge is going to be more likely to kind of give you some of that. But if you always just showboat around and act like an absolute clown, you're going to have a tougher time getting away with these things. This is just factual, okay? It just is what it is. So be tactical. This is going back to taking every advantage as you can. Know when you can get away with those things. Sometimes you cannot, sometimes you can. So plan ahead. Be a student of the sport. Be a student of the rule set and the events that are coming up. Plan ahead. So that's it. 2, know the rules and standards. Sometimes, on like a carry event, for example, you have to cross both feet across the line. Other times you just have to tap your toe. Sometimes the front of the implement has to cross the line. Sometimes the full implement has to cross the line. So this is the thing where victory is won in inches, not by miles. So where those little things that you can save time, energy, and score points, know those things in advance. Don't go in just like not knowing, all right? It's very, very simple. So to answer this question, is Mitch Hooper cheating? No way. I love Mitch Hooper. I really am a big fan. I have met him a couple of times, and he's always really, really been super nice. I want to give him a shout out that he also was volunteering at the 2023 official strongman games, like loading and spotting and taking equipment back and forth. And that guy doesn't need to do that. He won the World's Strongest Man. He doesn't need to do that whatsoever. But it's cool that he's so involved and so active. I don't think I've ever seen him shy away a fan or anything like that. So not to be fanboying here, but the guy is cool. And if you don't like any of this stuff, if you have a problem with some of this stuff, I don't think that you have what it takes to be a winner, because all of these guys, I think, should be doing what they can too, and they probably are. It just isn't as straightforward because Hooper has been so dominant recently, okay? So that is my video. Is Mitch Hooper cheating? No way. The guy's a phenomenal athlete. I'm really excited that we're getting some exciting things, like Thor is coming back. Could maybe make this scene a little more interesting if he gets his overhead in check. We'll see. But I think the guy's great for the sport. He's putting a lot of eyeballs on the strongman. He's really helping raise the standard for everybody and pushing limits. So that's my video. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this one today. If you have any comments, if you think I'm wrong, if you think Mitch Hooper is cheating, or whatever, any other inflammatory take, nice thought, comment, whatever you got, would love to hear from you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and have a championship day.